What up, it's your man Lucky Braxton. How in the Philip is you doing? In today's video, we're going to be talking about the M100, the Canon EOS M100. What I like about it, what I don't like about it. I've had the camera for a little while now. I got to play with it. I think that I understand the camera, and I mean, I'm pretty much used to using Canon menus anyway. So let's get into what I like about the camera the most. The number one feature that I like about this camera the most is the dual pixel autofocusing. I mean, if you're doing any kind of video or vlogging about yourself or your life or whatever it is that you're trying to do, the other thing that I like about it, which isn't a deal breaker, is that the screen turns up and so I can frame myself. Setting this camera up to 7D Mark II was a little bit of a pain in the ass. Right now I'm in autofocus, but I'm on center focus. It's the same thing that Peter McKinnon uses when he has the 1DX out in front of him. Center focus, I put my face in the center of the frame and I know that I'm in focus right now. So if I move, here's the downside of this camera. When I go to move, this is what you hear. You hear that? So that is one of the things that I don't get with this mirrorless camera and this lens, which is huge for me, so I can use the dual pixel autofocus and not hear the lens racking. Now, in order for me to do that on the 7D Mark II and not hear that, I'm gonna have to spend like $1,500 on like a 16 to 35, and it's an ultrasonic motor, so you don't hear it. So that's why on this camera, that's why I'm like pretty much staying in the one position so that you don't hear the lens. And that is a huge feature on this one. 15 to 45 is an okay for focal length. I don't plan on picking up the wider lens. I know there's an 11 to 22 at an f4. I don't plan on picking that lens up. The focal length of this camera I'm very, very comfortable with. I do wish that we had faster lenses for the Canon mirrorless, but that it is what it is. The second thing that I like about it is how small it is. It's very, very lightweight, and there's no setup time. That's the most important thing. Now on this camera, the 7D Mark II, which I'm shooting on right now, a little while ago, I'll post that like next to me or something like that, but a little while ago on my Instagram story, I brought this camera out and I shot my camera in portrait, and I got some really cool images of the kids outside, playing, in the snow and everything like that. But the problem is that I almost missed a lot of that because I was inside setting the camera up. I had to pull it out of my bag, throw the lens on it, figure out what lens I wanted to use, put the mic on it or whatever. The camera's weatherproofed and everything and weather sealed, so I knew that I wasn't gonna have a problem going out in the snow with it or whatever. But the fact that I had setup time, like, that just wasn't ideal. With this, I don't even really put this away. Like, this just sits like this on my desk and I can grab it whenever I need it to do that. And that's basically what I've been doing these last couple of weeks with this camera, is just grabbing it when I need it, and there's no setup time because it's already like there. This camera does not have a mic, and I know that that's a deal breaker for people, but it's not a deal breaker for me because you have people like Ben Brown, Sarah Dici. They all use cameras with no mic jacks for their vlogging purposes. So if they're on like RX100 Mark Vs, those don't have mic imports. And I'm not really worried about the mic import aspect of it because I have a professional camera. That's the whole reason why I didn't go with like an M5 or an M6 or an M3 or the new M50 or anything like that, because I already have a professional DSLR, that I can do a lot of stuff with and use it in professional situations. But when I'm just knocking around the house and I want to get like video of my kids or family or vlog or whatever, I have this camera right here to do that with. Now, the other cool thing about this is when I go to put this away, I basically, like, if I'm out, I can break the camera apart, throw the lens caps on, obviously, and throw the body cap on, obviously, but the profile of it is really thin, and I can fit both things in my jacket or in my cargo short pockets or whatever, because it's usually what I have on. But being able to store it while I'm out is another reason why. Using this camera, like, you have to have like a rapid strap or something like that, and I don't want to be carrying around a bunch of lenses and everything like that. I don't plan on changing the lens from here. I don't plan on like buying, like, I think there's an 11 to 22 lens at an f4 or whatever. I don't plan on changing the lens. I think this is a good focal length for the vlogging that I'm going to be doing. Now, the phone app is a little slow, it's a little clunky, but once you get through it and you get the connectivity done, you can control the whole camera from the app, which I absolutely love. I love that part too. Another feature that this camera has is a time lapse. I'm not really one for shooting time lapses. That wasn't really like a feature that I wanted in the camera. I see a lot of people in vlogs like that shoot time lapses, and my only take from that is I think that if you're gonna shoot time lapses, you should actually look up a video on how to shoot a time lapse and how to frame a time lapse. Because there's a lot of time lapses out there, like you don't necessarily just point your camera at a busy situation and put it on time lapse, because that just, I don't know, it doesn't look right. The other thing that's really good about this camera is that you can go into manual. Now there's no buttons on this camera really at all. I mean, you have your standard buttons here. We're gonna get to this button right here. We're gonna talk about that in a second. But there's no buttons on the camera or whatever. Everything is pretty much touch screen, which I don't have a problem with. Another feature that nobody really talks about is how the card slot is on the side of the camera. I think that that is so great about this camera that I don't have to take the mounting plate off the bottom of it, of whatever rig I'm on, to get to the card if I need to change the card. The battery life in this camera is okay. I mean, it's not like jaw dropping or eyebrow raising, but it's okay. And the other feature that was a plus for me and why I picked it up was the fact that I can adapt lenses to this. I have a little bit of footage of using my 1.8 to nifty 50 onto this camera and shooting around with my son was being silly or whatever. Now that also brings up that there's other adapters that I can adapt to this and start getting into some vintage lenses. Now a couple of people have already asked me, why didn't you just go with like an M3, an M5, or an M6? I almost bought an M3 for my friend Brian. I'll link down below. He moved from an M3 to an M6. That works for him because that's his main camera, that's his A camera. This camera works for knocking around the house and being able to film my family and film myself or vlog with it or whatever. Now, getting back to some of the things that I don't like about this camera. The very number one thing that I don't like about this camera, but it still wasn't a deterrent for me, was the fact that there isn't a lot of lens choices for the Canon mirrorless line. But again, it's not really a deal breaker for me. I'm using this as a compact camcorder in a sense, like family camcorder, dad with camcorder in hand sort of situation. That's what I'm using this camera for. You could go out and buy something like a G7X, but you won't be able to change the lenses, that was the deal breaker for me. Canon had the 18-55 kit lens that came with it. Here's the kit lens for this camera, but they also, after a while, came out with a 17-55 2.8, you know, with image stabilization. I wish we could do the same thing on this camera, have a higher end option in the mirrorless for this. I mean, they have all these mirrorless cameras in the line anyway. They might as well just come out with another lens, like give us like a 15-45 or a 15-50 or a 17-50 or something like that with a constant 2.8 and image stabilization. I would pay the money for that lens. And I don't like the button placement. That sort of frustrates me. All of the Canon like point and shoot cameras that I've had before, this has always been the record button, but I think that they put the record button up here because of the consumer that they were going after. That needed, the button needed to be up there for people that are going to be like this with selfies and want to be able to hit the record button on it like with their thumb. I'm so used to I hit this button all the time. Like whenever I'm holding my thumb, I don't know if you can see that. Whenever I'm holding my thumb here and using the camera, I always hit this right here. So if I'm using the camera and I have the camera and I got my thumb there or whatever and I'm recording, I always hit this button. And as soon as I hit that button, it stops the recording. It takes me out into a menu, into the wireless menu, and it's a pain in the ass. And I wish that I could like disable that button. I don't know if you can, but yeah, it is. Alright, so this battery is an LPE12, and I think that that's Canon's like new mirrorless battery that they've been using. I don't know, but the battery you don't get that many shots or video out of the camera. Whenever I use it, I usually just turn the camera off just to save battery. Yeah, I think that's about it for this camera review. The camera is pretty dope. I really like using it. It works for the type of photography and video that I'm doing currently at the moment for YouTube and for my Instagram. I mean, I do like using my 7D Mark II more often than I like using this camera, but the convenience of this camera and being able to use this camera the way that I use it has been great. It's been an overall great experience using this camera, and like I said, pretty soon I'm going to be buying adapters and then going online and finding more vintage lenses so I can start playing around with that you know, on this camera to get different aesthetics, especially with like filming the family and filming like the vlogs and stuff like that. The next video that I come out, I'll show you the settings that I use on this camera, as well as they're pretty much the same settings that I use on this camera, but it's just a little bit more easier to use those manual settings on this camera. So that'll be the next video for that. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you got something out of the video. Shoot me a like if you liked it, don't if you didn't, and I'll holler at y'all in the next video. Alright, peace.